Hi, and welcome to the Brohoyo Off Banner podcast. It's a podcast where I'm Steven and my co host Dave are going to talk about stuff outside of the gacha realm, other things that have influenced us, other things that we enjoy. I suspect there's going to be a lot of anime and entertainment on the docket, but in general, this is sort of our off topic, off banner discussion. So, to start us off with our inaugural episode, we're going to talk about Frieren, the anime that came out, I believe it was in winter of 2024. I might have the wrong season on that one. It might have been fall of 2023. But regardless, Frieren, Journey's End, that came out a little while ago. I had Dave watch it on per my request, and we want to discuss it, or I want to discuss it, and I'm forcing him to watch it so that we can. Jumping right in then, Dave, what were your thoughts on Frieren?
Yeah, hey everyone. So for Frieren, yeah, Steve tasked me with watching this, and it was not an anime I had heard of before. And just to clarify the timeline of it, you were about a year off or so, but that's fine. It was a while. It was fall of 2023 is when it originally came out and ran through March of 2024. So it's a 28 episode anime, and just kind of give my general overview of it. So the premise of the anime is you're introduced to these heroes that have gone on an epic 10-year journey, slayed a demon king, and you are introduced to them at the tail end, at the conclusion, after all the fighting and the journeying is done, and basically the celebration of defeating the demon king. And for my initial impressions, the anime got off to a very slow start. I was watching it, and I watched the first couple episodes with my wife as well to see if that was something she would be interested in. And after about 2 or 3 episodes, we were both sitting there going, "Where are they going with this anime? Like, what's the main drive going to be?" And we speculated that it was the character Frieren, right? Obviously, the show is named after her. Um, her being an elf or like a long life species versus everybody else in her party being a human or a dwarf and thus being a more short life cycle species. It's her dealing with the passing of time and the loss of those compatriots that were close to her. And so we weren't sure, are they going to introduce like a big bad in the overworld type thing, another evil for her to overcome? Or is this just going to be more of a like an internal struggle that, mentally, we can all deal with in terms of like the passing of time, the passing of friends, family, and loved ones type thing. And so while due to, real life circumstances, my wife was unable to join me for after episode 3, I continued on and got through it pretty quickly. And what I will say is the series didn't really pick up for me until about episode 8. And it was around episode 8 where we're introduced to kind of this concept. Some demons were introduced to this aura demon girl and some of her subordinates that she has. And there's a little bit of lore, and we learn more about Frieren's upbringing and how she was trained to suppress her mana and, demons. And we learn a little bit about the demon lifestyle and how demons don't suppress their mana because they have to show off how strong they are type thing. And it leads to this really awesome moment. And this is where I was here for this part. In Frieren's, it was a legend amongst the land because she's known as being, a part of the legendary heroes. Well, she goes off to face Aura, who's this strong demon individual, who's full of herself and senses Frieren's mana to not be as strong as hers and uses her ability, which if you're not familiar with the anime, I'll go in a little bit more detail about this because again, it was really cool how they did it in that her ability, basically, she brings out a scale and she weighs the weight of your soul or the power of your soul or the mana of your soul, essentially, against her own. And then whoever's mana or force or whatever you want to call it is stronger ultimately wins that battle of the soul and can compel the other person to do their bidding, do whatever it is. And she, or the demon, has never lost one of these. She's very confident in her abilities because she's been around for 500 years or whatever. But what she doesn't know is that Frieren has been around for about 1,000 years and has this constant state of restraining her mana so that you can't sense her full capacity. And so she gets very confident, very cocky, pulls this out. And then as the scales are weighing and Aura's, mana is heavier, Frieren stops suppressing her mana, and then the weight just dramatically shifts. And you see the terror of the fear in his eyes. And what was really awesome about this scene to me was Frieren doesn't even cast a spell. She's a mage. She doesn't even cast a spell. She literally turns around and is walking away and says, Aura, kill yourself. And well, or unalive yourself.
It doesn't matter. We're past the.
Well, I said
Yeah.
it. So yeah, I'm not telling anybody to do it. I'm just quoting what the thing said. Censors, let me by. And so then Aura, picks up her own sword, and then like, despite her struggling to stop herself, she can't because of the rules of her own game that she's concocted. She beheads herself, and it was such a strong, powerful scene. And it was so well done, and they don't show the beheading, right? They don't need to show the gore to still make it be impactful. And that scene was like, okay, if this is what the anime is gonna, if this is where we're going, like we're really gonna be like, she's this awesome like mage who has this hobby of collecting quirky spells, but she's really a badass type thing. Like, I'm here for it. So that story arc from episode 8 to episode 12 or 13, I was like, okay, cool. This is what we got. And then we went back into a lull for another 8 episodes or so. And then we get to episode maybe 2021, somewhere around there, and we get to some mage trials that they're going through to become a certified first class mage.
Mhm.
And then that's when the story picks back up. And so I would say, if I had to surmise my opinion of the show and do it very succinctly and quickly, which I'm terrible at doing, as you can tell, I would say that it was a boring anime, but I was not bored by it, I guess is the best way I can phrase it. In that not too much happens. If you're looking for like a action-packed, jam-packed, boom, 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 big hitter after big hitter, that's not what this anime is. However, the way that they frame things and the passing of time and kind of how people are affected by it had me intrigued. And that's kind of what kept me going in the building of those relationships. And then now ultimately it did end with some interesting things in terms of how the world is going to take the direction of magic and everything like that. But yeah, if I had to succinctly put it into a short, like one sentence phrase, it's a boring anime, but I was not bored by it.
Okay, fair enough. That is fair. I will admit that I think I enjoyed even those slower bits a bit more. For me, it feels like it's a slice of life anime that's been stapled on top of a Lord of the Rings style story, where there's a lot of again it's not high action, but I think it has a lot to say, and it does tone and setting really well. Like, it's something that's very immersive, I would say. At least for me, I found it very immersive. But I do think it's fair to argue that there's not a lot of high octane action. I think the first time it really actually picks up is when they meet Quazzle. It's one of the demons.
Yeah, it's one of Aura's underlings, one of the two.
No.
Yes.
Even earlier before that, because it's
Oh.
when Frieren and Fern, who is her human apprentice, they go out, and Frieren has sealed the demon away for like 80 years. He's going to break out, and they have to, it's like, oh, he invented Soul Track, or I think they call it Zoltak in the...
Yes. Yeah, I think that was episode 3 or 4. Yeah, and they break the seal because it was weakening, and then, yeah, they have that combat, yes.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, that was the story that got its hooks into me, because I loved the idea of, there's this demon with this super powerful magic, and it's been sealed away for 100 years. And that, that's a common hook in fantasy stories, where this ancient evil was sealed away and it was so powerful and so on and so forth. And within those 80 years in the world of Frieren, basically everybody studied the magic that demon had and built upon it and worked upon it and improved it to the point to where it's just common offensive magic. Like, it's the spells that everybody uses. So it'd be like Sauron coming back in, Middle Earth and going like, aha, I have a gun. Look how fearsome I am. It's this flintlock pistol. I can kill anyone with it. And everyone kind of looking at him going like, okay, we've got AKs. Who cares? Good for you, I guess. And then just get taken out. So I thought that was a fun, clever, interesting take on that sort of trope. And that the writer and Frieren as a story tends to do interesting things with it. Again, like with Aura and her minions, that was a fun one of that story. And I guess apologize a little bit because I'm rambling, but I'm going to ask you, Dave, what think about demons in the world of Frieren? Because there's been some controversy around it.
Well, so I think the first thing that I guess the anime does is it does something interesting, and then it throws you in at the end of an adventure, right? It just throws you in with these characters are already these legendary heroes, and they don't really have you, the viewer, having partook in witnessing their rise to glory, right? We're just given it, this is what it is, and it's the aftermath of that, which is an interesting take on that, on that particular type of trope. But in terms of the demons, I don't know what kind of controversy there could be around. I'd be interested to hear what the fan base has said about it. But because to me, the whole concept, like, and why I mentioned being thrown in with them having already adventured, is you're thrown into a world where the rules are already established, and you just have to accept that as a viewer, that you may not know what they are because they haven't been introduced to you, because we haven't been along for the ride. And so you have to accept everything at face value when it's given to you. So when you get the flashbacks with Frieren and her master, Flamma,
Yeah,
the redheaded chick, who took her on, right? So when you get the flashbacks of those, and she's giving you the spiel about demons and how they're functioning in society, is, and that they can't suppress their mana because they don't suppress their mana because there's no need to in demon society. You're judged how strong you are based off of what your mana is, and that's survival. So why would you ever suppress your mana? Or even the concept of it is baffling to you. So the fact that Frieren is trained to suppress her mana to trick them, because they just see her for what she is, and not knowing that she's suppressing her mana, because that concept is a little foreign to them. And B, Frieren has been training at suppressing her mana, so there's no variance in it. That was the big thing, is there's no variance in her wavering, like there would be if you don't actively do it. But what controversy, I guess, would you be referring to, or would fans of the show think that there is in Demons? I'd be interested to hear that.
So one of the controversies when it first came out is you have demons in Frieren are sociopaths. They do not feel emotions the way people do. This is set down by the author. The author is very clear that demons don't feel empathy. They don't feel sympathy. They do not feel any emotion that would be connected with other people. They are basically high-functioning sociopaths. The example that you can give is when the demon emissaries are visiting the town, and the Duke, I forget what his exact title is, the guy who runs the town, the Baron of the town, is going to kill the demons basically out of revenge. The demon, asks, well, didn't you kill my father? I believe was the exact quote. Let's stop this cycle of violence. And that ends up calming the Baron down and goes, okay, fine, we'll talk. And as they're walking away, the demons kind of go, I don't even have a dad. I don't know what's going on. Whatever. It's magic words that make it, that make them stop trying to kill us. So they have no concept of empathy. Which kind of makes it, I'm not going to say necessarily okay, but it makes it much more understandable when Frieren is demon racist, where she's like, no, kill them all. Like, they are monsters that use words to hurt people, like to kill people, to so on and so forth. And that's where the controversy came in, because certain people got into very deep discussions about, like, oh, they're othering people, this is racist or what have you against demons, and that, they shouldn't be portraying them this way, that, like, there's always the chance that they could be empathetic or so forth, turning demons into unempathetic monsters is problematic, what have you. Um, so that's come up in the past. I personally think that's a little bit
Wow.
goofy, because again, the story has been very clear of like no, like demons are monsters that use words to eat people. Like they're
Yeah, I
bad.
mean, I mean, if that's the argument that you want to make, that oh well, demons can be empathetic and they can do this, okay, in other universes or in other stories, sure, but as the author showed in this one, that's not what demons are in this particular universe. And I do remember that scene that you referenced there, where he says, "Oh, didn't you use that sword to kill my father?" type thing, and then his yeah, his compatriots are walking away. She's like, I didn't know you had a fight. He's like, I don't know what, yeah, I don't know what that is. It's just, it's a word that makes humans hesitate, or, something to that effect. Right. And so it reestablishes or reaffirms what the author is telling you about demons, and that, yeah, they just use words. They just speak English or common human language, right? Or whatever language it is, right? To deceive humans. That's all it is. And so for Frieren to have that approach makes sense canonically.
Canonically.
Can canonically?
Yep.
Like banana,
Yeah.
banana. Back to Star Rail. So it makes sense within this universe's story, and people making those claims about, oh well, they shouldn't, whatever it was you said, they shouldn't other them, or demons can be sympathetic. It was like, they can be, not in this universe. In other, high fantasy stories, sure, but that is not what the author's direction was for this. And so that's, again, kind of going back to what I said a bit ago, is there are rules and laws of this land that you as a viewer just have to accept as fact, because when they're introduced to you, because you weren't along for the ride. So it's just anything introduced to you, you take at face value, and just that kind of is what it is. That is the established rule. That's the established social norm.
Mm.
So that's what we have to take it for. We can't judge it based off of other high fantasy anime or stories or real life stuff necessarily, because social norms aren't the same.
Yeah, and I do think that the other reason why there was some hoopla was when Frieren had Aura unalive herself. Aura's a pretty character. Like, she's a attractive character design.
Well,
People were into it.
all right.
And when that happened, you had a lot of people who were very salty that they did that to a character that they found cute. I think that was the other half.
Well,
of
that's a
it.
yeah. I don't even know how to respond to that, so
I'm
not going to.
I'm putting it out there. What
What I would say is, you mentioned some of the slow parts. Maybe you enjoyed some of the slow parts of the story a little bit more than maybe I did, and that's fine. I will say that there were some slow moments that I did enjoy. I enjoy that, as strong and as powerful as Frieren is, as much of a badass as she is, the fact that, like, her hobby's finding these quirky little spells that do the silliest of things, and the lengths that she goes to try and find these, like the gimmick about, she knows that's a mimic. That's not a real treasure chest. She knows it's a mimic, but she still goes and like dives headfirst into it, and then needs help getting out. And the way they animate her face and make it look, those were those small little moments in the way they animate her face, and like she does her little fingers pointing to her, like she knows she messed up. Like, she's 1,000 years old, but she has these little, like, innocent childlike mannerisms that just kind of make her all the more endearing.
Which I guess does neatly bring us also around to the mage evaluation arc. What were some of your thoughts on that? Like, how did you feel about basically getting to see Frieren pop off again? Because that's really the next time that she gets to strut her stuff. And you also get to see Fern strut her stuff.
Yeah, so in keeping with the theme of time passing, and her new acquaintances becoming friends and having these travel experiences, and helping them and watching them grow and succeed and stuff, I did enjoy this story arc. Like I said, if the show had been, instead of being the last 8 episodes of this, if it had been 28 episodes of stuff like this, rather than 8 episodes of build up, or not even build up, but like 8 episodes of lull, and then 5 episodes of excitement, followed by 8 more episodes of lull, finishing with, 6 episodes of excitement, and then like 2 episodes of closure. then I would have been like, man, this was a fantastic anime, it really hit everything for me. But so this part of the story arc was really good. And you enjoyed her kind of unleashing her battle acumen and her knowledge, her history, and just everything like that. Because it's boring if an all powerful character, to me it's boring if an all powerful character is the strongest and just wins everything with ease, and it's not a problem. So the fact that they had to do some of these like conditional things where just brute magic force doesn't win you the day, um, and allows her to flex her wisdom and also her allies, skills and abilities. I did really like that. The kind of abruptness of death, in like stage one of the mage story arc, and obviously as they progress then into the labyrinth and like the ease and with which they killed off some characters. Wasn't expecting that for this type of anime, based off of like how the previous 20 episodes had gone. Like you maybe had a hint of it with the Aura fight, but that was a bad guy. And these other mages that were trying to pass weren't necessarily bad guys. But it was a good portion of the story arc. I did enjoy some of the sub characters. So while I forget their name, I did enjoy Dankin and just kind of he was the old guy with the monocle.
Yep.
And kind of his approach to things. I enjoyed I'm forgetting their names, but the one guy who mage, he had like a short staff.
Are you talking about
Gray,
the general?
kind of gray
Yeah.
hair guy.
Yeah, he's the military guy from the north.
He's the military guy from the. I'm trying to remember his name, but his interactions with then the green haired girl, who's a little bit of a psychopath. I really enjoyed their dynamic. I enjoyed those characters, and some of their dialogue, and even the green haired girl, her conversations with Sense, who was the arbiter over that trial going into the labyrinth, and some of the flashbacks and like interactions they had when they talked about
scissors cut hair, man.
Ubel.
Yep.
Ubel was her name and Werble was his name. But yeah, so Ubel, like her flashback to when she passed but failed the trial when it happened like 4 years ago because she cut the dude in half, and she was just like, used too much, like. So a lot of the characters they introduced there had some very interesting backstories, and I would have liked to learn more about them and then see how things progress. And then ultimately, when it came to the ultimate, interviewing them for will they become a first class mage or not? Like all that was very interesting, and like I said, that story arc was the best. And it's just unfortunate that it was so short in comparison to what I had to watch to get there, and that nothing is coming from this universe beyond that story arc to dive deeper into it, if that makes sense.
Well, there is a season 2 that's been confirmed.
It just hasn't happened yet. Okay.
It just hasn't happened yet, and the comic has continued on. I'm just, again, we're not covering any of that because of reasons. Okay, yeah. I'll agree. Donkin is one of my favorites. I love at the end of the part 1 of the test when it's like, okay, we got to go take the bird from this guy who's like, his 2 teammates are dead, and he's one of their teammates is dead, and the other 2 just have the bird, and it's like, well, they can't pass, but we can't just we have to take it from them. Like, okay, but we're out of magic. So what do we
use? Magic. We're out of mana. They're out of mana. Fisticuffs.
Yeah,
that was pretty great.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, we're just gonna punch them. Like, come on. Like, yeah, that was that was some good stuff. That and Frieren exploring the dungeon for the part 2. They're going into that labyrinth, and her just enjoying going through the labyrinth and kind of just futzing around while everyone else is taking it super seriously. She's like, "Nah, no, that." It actually made me think of you, Dave, because at one point they're like, "Well, okay, that way's forward progression." She goes, "Okay, so we can't go that way until we've cleared this entire floor."
Yeah,
like, we have to find everything.
When that scene happened, I was like, "Oh my gosh, she's me in every RPG ever. I must search every nook and cranny of this fog of war to unveil any potentially hidden treasure chests for any potentially good items." Yeah, I resonated with that so strongly. Yeah, 100% me
Yeah.
in any RPG. So if you ever play games or party with me, I'm sorry, I'm exploring every nook and cranny of a dungeon.
Yeah, that one hit me right here because there's been some games of D&D with the two of us where it's like, nope, we got to clear this entire floor. It doesn't matter. We got to check everything, um, which is fine. But yeah, no,
She's focused on spells. I'm focused on everything, spells or equipment. Yeah. So
yeah,
I completely get her sentiment for wanting to find even the most peculiar of small spells. And speaking of that, this does remind me of one interaction between Fern and Stark. There was an episode where it was Stark's birthday, and Fern forgot to give him a gift because she didn't realize it was until Frieren mentioned it, and they had a funny interaction about a potion that removes clothing,
yep,
and that was a funny moment. But then a couple episodes, not even a couple episodes, like 1 or 2 episodes later, it's Fern's birthday, and then she gets mad at Stark for not remembering her birthday and getting her a gift. And it's like, do you not remember what just happened? Like 2 episodes ago when you only remembered because Frieren reminded you? He didn't have Frieren to remind him, and he still, like, made the best out of it. Like, stop it.
yeah. I mean, they're young. They're what, 16, I think, at the time that all this is happening. 16, 17.
Sure.
So, they're kids. Another good Stark and Fern interaction for me was when Fern gets angry at Stark. I think it's one of the last episodes that has the priest in it, beardy
Mhm.
priest in it, and like Stark's upset Fern and so on and so forth, and it turns out that the reason why Fern was upset at Stark wasn't because he touched her without her permission necessarily. Like when he touched her face because it was cold, his hands were cold. He touched her face to try and spook her. It wasn't that freaked her out. It was his hand on her shoulder because when he held her like that, she couldn't move. Where
He was so strong. Yeah.
yeah, like it was just no, she was pinned in place, and I really liked that interaction because it was one of those where I don't know, it felt very human. It felt like one of those things that's like Stark wasn't really thinking about like, oh, I am pinning her down to do this. For him, he thought the reason why she was angry was because he touched her face with his cold hands, and that
Mhm.
felt bad. It didn't really stick with him that it was like, no, she was terrified that if he wanted to, he basically could rag her like a dog with a squirrel. And that just,
And all he was really saying was just literally holding her shoulder.
yeah,
It's not like he was pinning her; he was just holding her.
yeah,
And that's a good point because this show, let's be real, it focuses on Frieren and Fern and mages and magic and stuff.
mhm,
So Stark is a non-magic user. Just he literally, I think, is at the inn for the entire final story arc, just
yeah.
drinking and eating,
And
and
going
that's all
on
he's
mini
doing.
adventures too. I love that whenever Stark walks into a town, he ends up in mini adventures. But anyways, continue.
Yeah, so he's just kind of like thrown by the wayside in the last story arc because he's a non-magic user and they're off doing a mage test. So he does get his few moments to shine. But you mentioned there being more to the show. I'll maybe have to look into that and see where they're going with it. But those are kind of my thoughts on it. Unless did you have anything else for me or any other wanted to get any of my other thoughts on it, or did you
Um,
have any other big thoughts that you wanted to share? Did
uh,
I miss something that you were hoping I would see?
no, no, no. I could gush about Frieren for quite a while. I do find it interesting that Frieren. I don't know if it's still listed as number one, but at least while it was airing, basically for the entire time it was airing, it was listed as the number one anime, and it actually beat out Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood as the number one anime
In terms of
reviewed.
rating or watch or views?
It's on like my anime list, like most suggested, highest rated,
Oh,
highest
highest
scored.
rated type
Yeah,
stuff. Okay.
yeah. Or like it is cream of the crop as far as anime goes. And again, I really enjoy it. I think it's great pacing. I could spend hours just gushing about it. I love that show. I love the comic. It's good. I'm super excited for season 2. I'm super happy that I think it's Madhouse is the studio that had who did it, and they're doing season 2 as well, which has me super excited because the animation on it is gorgeous. If you want to see an example of that, Google or YouTube the Stark fight with the dragon. That is wonderful animation, beautiful. But yeah, I'll stop gushing.
Well, you had me curious, so I went ahead and pulled up my anime list, and I pulled up their top anime series scores for all anime. And so, yeah, sure enough, Frieren is their top ranked on there. Overall, like congruent score 9.32.
Okay.
A recent addition here looks like the One Piece fan letter that just came out. I haven't watched that yet. I think I finally caught up. I've watched everything else, and I know they're on a 6-month hiatus, but the One Piece fan letter is now number 2. But prior to that, like you mentioned, yeah, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is at 3 technically now. Steins Gate 4, and then we get into a few other animes. A few of the Gintama. Bleach is up here. Hunter x Hunter is down there at 10. More Bleach, more Gintama, stuff like that. But yeah, so that is interesting to me that this is the highest ranked show on on my anime list. Because it would not be my number one, even though, like I said, it was good. It's just a little slower for me than I would have liked.
Fair enough. So yeah, I think we'll call this off banner episode done. We've got a couple others on the docket to cover.
I was gonna say we can maybe throw a teaser out here. So for those of you, just as a reminder, this one for Frieren, Steve told me to watch this, and the concept of this was for us to introduce the other to something we hadn't seen yet, and then kind of pick their brain about it, get their reactions to it. And so he threw Frieren at me, and while I've been watching Frieren, so a teaser for our next episode on this would be I gave him the task of watching Psychopaths. So that will be our next discussion for when we put this out there. But until next time, keep gaming.
Choice, go fight against your fate.